Yes, children. So finally we saw that how the tribal chiefs used to enjoy the power before the British rule come. But what happens once this British people entered, their power started to reduce. Okay. So that is the reason, as we have seen that, the chiefs, they were more, the important, they used to enjoy the importance of, all those importance started to reduce. And we have seen in the last, the settled cultivation, what happened, they used to lend the land for the rent, that all those things has been stopped and their power has been minimized. Okay, so due to that, what happened, even this people were fed up with this, the rules which has been made by this British. Okay, and the next we are going to see about the shifting cultivators. So later what happened, this British people, the entry of this British people not only affected the chiefs, okay, this tribal chiefs, even it started to affect this shifting cultivators. How? Let us see here. So as we have already seen, shifting cultivation and the slash and burn cultivation, they were not happy with this because it was very difficult for them to control them and even the administer them. And in the last chapter we have even studied about their revenue system. There are the three different kinds of revenue, the settlements which they have introduced, all those things. So with those ideas to collect more and more revenues, when the people are moving from one place to another place, it will not be easy for them to collect the revenue, all those things. So that is the reason they were expecting them to settle in a one particular place. See here, British wanted tribal groups to settle down. So they wanted the tribals to settle in one particular place and do the cultivation. See, what is the reason? Because wanted a regular source of revenue, because they were the people who were collecting the revenue and they were using that for their trading activities. So due to that, they wanted a regular source of revenue. So that is the reason they were expecting even the tribals has to settle in one particular place. And introduced land settlements. So what happened? They started to measure the land and they started to divide the land and give it to them. Okay, so they introduced the land settlements also because they were expecting the regular source of revenue. So that is the reason. Settling of gem cultivators not successful. So it was not that much easy. Okay, so they were not successful in the settling of this shifting cultivators. See, Northeast, the gem cultivators in India insisted on continuing with traditional practices. So why, what happened to this? Why they were not successful, children? Because as we know that due to the shifting cultivation, what happens? They used to cut down the trees, they'll burn that, and with that particular place they used to do the agriculture or cultivation, and after that they leave that land for the fallow land and they'll be moving into the another land. So that time what happened, the empty land, the fallow land which they live it for the years together, for a few years they'll leave it empty. So by that what happened, the soil fertility will be more than compared to the land which will be growing, the frequently growing land. So that is the reason what happened, due to this, once they settled in one particular place, they did not get the more yield like shifting cultivation, and that was not successful, and even this shifting cultivators were not ready to do that. So they had lot of problems. So that is the reason again in the northeast cultivators, this shifting cultivators in India insisted on the continuing with the traditional practices. What is the traditional practices? Like a shifting cultivation only. Right to carry on shifting cultivation in some parts of the forest had to be granted. So again they were demanding and the right to carry whatever the same kind of shifting cultivation or the slash and burn the cultivation only in the few parts or in some parts of the forest had to be granted. Okay, hope you guys are understanding. No children, that has been granted. So this is all about the shifting cultivators. So how the this British rule affected the shifting cultivators, and we have seen how it has been affected the tribal chiefs also. And the next thing we are going to see about policy of land settlements, how they made this land settlement. See, British officers, they measured the land, defined the right of each individual of that land, fixed the revenue. Some peasants were declared landowners, others were tenants. So this we have studied in the last chapter. Do you guys remember, children? There are three kinds of settlement. So in that settlement, which kind of settlement this is? They measure the land. Go and see once again. Okay, whether it's a Mahalwari system, whether it's a permanent settlement or the right forest system. Okay, so here what happened? This British officers, they used to measure the land, they used to divide the land, and they will give it to the each person, and then they used to fix the revenue. The main major idea of this land settlement is just to make sure the regular revenue source. Okay, so that is the reason they introduced this land settlement. Okay, and the next thing is, excuse me, yes, so in the reserve forest, so later what happened? So children, till here we have seen about the land settlements and how this British people were affecting all those, due to this, the British rule affected this people, shifting cultivators and the other people. Now we are going to see about the forest areas. So later what happened? This British people, they started to say that the forest is the, it is one of the state property. This is not a, the property of the people. This is a state property. And then they divided the forest into different category. Okay, they divided the forest into different category. One, it is like a reserved forest, a protected forest, and like a village forest. Like that, they divided into different categories. So even this concept you will be studying in your 9th standard in detail, children. So division of the forest and the laws which they have implemented, all those things, the rules which they have made, everything you will be studying in a detail in your 9th standard. Okay, so reserved forest are like a the protected forest, all those things, village forest, like that. So here what happened? They introduced some new laws, new rules and regulations. By that what happened? The people were not allowed to enter into the forest because it is a state property. And one more thing what happened, that time was a peak time where this railways were expanding more and more, and at the same time they had a wars also for the they were using the timbers for the to make the boats and the ships. Okay, so that is the reason they were using more and more forest. They were cutting the trees and they used to export that to their country. Okay, so finally what happened? The forest were taken over by the state, that is British people. So they considered it as a state property. See, people were not allowed to move freely. The people, the tribals, were not allowed to enter into the forest freely. Practice jump cultivation. There is no shifting cultivation anymore in the forest, and they'll not be allowed to collect the fruits. They'll not be allowed to hunt the animals. Whatever the major tribal activities were banned. Okay, many were therefore forced to move to the other areas. From the forest areas, many people were forced to move to the other places. Okay, so this is a new law which has been made by the British. they started to categorize the forest as a, the different categories, like a reserved forest, protected forest, like that. Okay, so finally what happens now, children? So as we have seen, the British started to use the forest for the developmental activities. With the name of developmental activities, they started to cut down the trees and they started to use the timber and all those things. See, the problem of labor. The British needed labor to cut trees for railway sleepers. So as I told you, people, with the name of development, the railways were expanding at that time. They were trying to expand the railways. So now we can see the railway tracks with the iron rods. Do you guys remember the old railway tracks, children? Have you people seen that? So the old railway tracks and all, if we see, we will be seeing, now like a wooden plank they used to use. That is what they'll call it as a sleepers, the railway sleepers. The tracks will be there. In between, there will be the wooden planks will be there. So that is what the sleepers they used to. So that is the reason they used to cut the trees and they used to use the timber for the sleepers. So they need labor for that activities. But here what happens, the people were not ready to work for the British and they were not ready to involve in the transport activities also, because they were not allowed to do the cultivation, they were not allowed to enter into the forest, all those things. So that is the reason to have the solution for this problem, the labor problem. What this British people did, see, they had a plan that they will be giving the small patches of land in the forest for the shifting cultivation. So by that they should have an agreement that the people or the villagers who will be residing near to that forest has to provide the labors for this activities, the cheap labors for the activities, the trading activities. So finally, with this agreement, they were ready to give the small plots of land to the for the shifting cultivation for the tribals. Okay, see, that is what they had a problem with the labors. So that is the reason they found a solution. What is that solution, children? See, gave some cultivators small patches of land in the forest. So they were ready to give the small patches, the small plots of land for the shifting cultivation activities with an agreement. What is that agreement? Allowed them to cultivate that land, but villagers would have to provide labor to the forest department. So with an agreement of the villagers, the people who will be residing near to the forest has to provide the labor to the forest department, ensured a regular supply of cheap labor. So that is the reason they ensured that, they made sure that those people will be providing the regular supply of the cheap labor. Okay, so hope you guys are understanding now, children, how this British affected the life of these tribals. Okay, this is all about that, and how this forest laws, forest categories started to affect the life of this people. That is also we have seen. Okay, and the next, it is about the reaction of tribal groups. So how those people reacted for that, and revolt of the Sangram Sangama in 1906 in Assam, the forest satyagraha of the 1930s in the central provinces. So these are all, these are the rebellion activities, are the revolt against the British people. Because of this, the new forest laws which has been made. And one more problem, what happened, they started to cut the many forest, the trees, with the name of developmental activities. So due to that, the many tribal groups started to revolt against, because they were seeing this, the forest as they are the essential for their survival. So that is the reason, all those things. and let us see this concept in the next class, children. Thank you.